It's inverted.
We are live with two of my heroes, Shaun Monson and Amy G. Davis. They have a brand new film. Tell us about it because it's extraordinary. We're going to play it in a second, but we want to hear it from you to set up the clip.
Well, it was funny because we did this film a year ago, right after Joaquin won the Oscar. Literally the next day, we had a chance to go rescue this mother and calf. And so we recorded that and we released it a year ago. It was called Liberty. And then in January this year, I chatted with him and I said, I wonder if we should do a follow-up, and see how they are. And it didn't happen then, but in March, he reached out and said, yeah, let's go do it. So it was quite quick from the time that we shot it, which was the very end of the March to the release. We're talking about 3 weeks to put it all together. And you don't know what's going to happen with animals and weather. It was very windy that day. You can't really see it, but it was terribly windy. So there's technical issues and stuff, but, and then I spent, 2 weeks frantically cutting it and, no script, you just listen to the person speaking and you look at the footage and then sometimes magic happens. And I think it was a pretty touching little, even tearjerker moment there or two in the film. So I'm quite happy with it. I hope it gets seen.
We're going to see in a second. And Amy G, this was extraordinary because this was literally the day after he spoke truth to power to the world as he won Best Actor for his incredible portrayal in The Joker. And he literally took that moment to say, hey, we artificially inseminate mother cows. And then when their babies are born, we take them away so we can put their breast milk in our coffee. And that was such an extraordinary moment that had, I think, a breakthrough moment for the animal rights movement. And then the next day, he goes with you guys and rescues. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Unplanned.
Totally. Yeah, well, I got a message from the slaughterhouse owner the next day. And I said to Shaun, I go, do you think Joaquin would come with us? Do you think he'd be interested in being a part of this? It's because we've rescued cows from that slaughterhouse before, and it's always just, beautiful and powerful and heartbreaking because of the other cows that are not coming with us. And so I thought, do you think he'd want to come and be a part of this? And Shaun's like, well, he just won an Oscar, so I don't know what kind of headspace he's in or what he's up for. And so I sent him a message, and he was like, yeah. When, where? And so Shaun called him and gave him all the details, and we made it happen.
Yeah. Wow. Well, let's watch the film. Here it is. It's called, tell us the name of it.
Indigo.
Indigo.
A year ago, I got a call that there was an opportunity to rescue this calf and her mother from a slaughterhouse just outside of Los Angeles. And I'd never, it's strange thinking about this, but I'd never been close to livestock before. So I went down to the slaughterhouse, and the owner had decided that he wanted to kind of allow us to rescue this animal. In addition to not, having never been around livestock, I'd never been in a slaughterhouse either before. So one of the first things that I noticed when we drove up was the hides of animals hanging on this fence, and there were hundreds upon hundreds, probably thousands of hides, which is obviously made me very uncomfortable. And just the smell and the energy, there's something about it that makes you very uneasy. And there was an area where there were several cattle that were cordoned off, and they were basically there in preparation to be taken inside of the slaughterhouse. And then off to the side was another enclosure in which I saw a cow and the baby. And the baby, the calf, seemed, understandably, almost kind kind of frozen in fear, was and almost sickly, to be honest. At first was like kneeling down and away from its mom, kind of off into the corner, and imagine it was frightened and exhausted and dehydrated, who knows what. And so to see this calf so vulnerable, and then in order to transport the cows, I learned that they had to be transported separately, in separate compartments. So we had to get the mom first. And so as we walk into the enclosure, the mom just immediately just urinates, clearly out of just fear, an uncontrollable fear. So you really get a sense of what they must be feeling and how terrifying their lives have been thus far, and the transportation from, I imagine, the feedlots or wherever they were kind of raised and being trucked over to the slaughterhouse. And of course, hearing the sounds of the slaughter that are happening inside, and seeing the cows that they knew being pulled away and brought inside. Clearly, the smells, they have to understand what's happening. I was told that the best way to help usher the calf would be just to actually pick her up, which I was afraid that it would frighten her more. You can only imagine being picked up and separated from her mother. So I was nervous, and I had to tell myself, try not to make her any more nervous. Like, try to calm your nerves and your anxiety. Just try to be like neutral and as much like kindness as possible. And I managed to pick her up. And thankfully, Farm Sanctuary and Gene Bauer had offered to take them in, where they have several other cows that have been rescued. And so they had a place that they could go, a forever home. Farm Sanctuary had offered me the opportunity to name the cows, and I asked my sister Liberty if it was okay if I named them after her and her son Indigo, who passed away several years ago. She said yes, and so I named them Liberty and Indigo. We drove up there, and I went with my mom. They had to be quarantined for several weeks or a month. So I thought that I would kind of see them in the field immediately with the other cows, but then learn like, oh no, they have to go through this quarantine process, which of course you understand. So there was this great relief in knowing that they had been rescued from this factory of death, that they'd been rescued from imminent slaughter, and yet I felt a little bit unresolved because I wanted to see them completely liberated. I wanted to see them like as free as possible and with other cows.
Aww.
When I dropped off Liberty and Indigo, who were of course, nervous and skittish, totally understandable. But after we put them in quarantine, I had the opportunity to go into the field where the other rescued cows were. And again, my only interaction with cows in the past has been seeing them on the side of the road when you're driving. When I was a teenager and I lived in Mexico, there were cows in the field and stuff. But I'd never been close to any. And so I went in the enclosure, and I was so surprised at how at ease they were with us and how welcoming. I mean, it was almost like being with somebody's dog or or a horse. I really, I couldn't believe it. I imagined they would be skittish and be scarred by the experiences they had and resentful towards humans. But I was surprised that they weren't, and there was a warmth and an intelligence in their eyes. I don't even know if it's intelligence. I dislike that, the whole idea of my standard of intelligence that I put on them. I don't know what they have. All I know is that there was clearly a unique soul in there. So it had been nearly a year, and I wanted to see kind of what Liberty and Indigo, how their lives were, whether they had assimilated into this group with the other cows, what that was like. So we went back out to Farm Sanctuary and worked with all the amazing volunteers and just to kind of get a little update on where they're at, and it was pretty remarkable again. My expectation, again, was that they would be standoffish. And I was surprised that once they'd kind of fed and felt more comfortable, I was hanging with Saffron, who's like, this massive ton of kindness. And Indigo, the calf, just kind of walked up towards me. And I was so surprised. There was no way that she would have come up to me when we first met her. And yet here now, feeling the safety of this place, knowing that these humans had been there to care for her and the other cows. She came up with curiosity. I don't know if she trusted me or what, but she didn't feel scared of me. It was incredible to see them, and Indigo was nursing off of her mom, which was just incredible to see. And just their natural behavior and how so often we interrupt that. These are unique lives, and that they deserve autonomy and freedom to live whatever lives they wish. And I hope that people get the opportunity to see that. I hope they can feel what I feel when I see them and recognize the intrinsic value that they have. My sister Liberty came, and my sister Rain, and it was so nice to introduce Liberty to her namesake. Just thinking about the billions of lives, annually of animals that we kill for our own consumption, or for our hats or wristbands or shoes or belts. We spend one day each year paying homage to our planet, Earth Day, but the other 364 days we consume with impunity. It's really undeniable the detrimental impact that animal agriculture has on the environment. And so this simple act of rescuing Liberty and Indigo, these two cows, in some ways it's as simple as just sparing the lives of these creatures. But it's also an acknowledgement of not only the destruction that they experience at our hands, but the environment as a whole. And that by our actions, we either have the choice to continue to destroy other beings and the environment, or we begin the process of reversing the damage that we've done.
Scooch up closer. Scooch closer.
Oh yeah, I'm just waiting.
Wow.
Jane, watch here. I want you to just look at.
I know.
Just look at Indigo. Now watch now. And Joaquin turns away. Indigo looks at him. Watch him now. And before he looks back, she'll turn away again. And exit. She looks back at him and watches him go. It's a nice little moment.
Wow.
In there.
So powerful.
Oh.
Whoa. So powerful. So powerful. Wow. Well, one of the things that I think is so extraordinary is a lot of people don't realize that cows are pregnant when they go to slaughter. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, Amy Jean Davis, and Los Angeles Animal Save and the Save movement in general?
Well, especially in the dairy industry, part of what the dairy industry operates upon is the female reproductive system in cows. And so cows don't begin lactating until they give birth. So they're impregnated at the soonest possible time in their young lives. And then upon giving birth, they start to lactate, and then they're immediately re-impregnated to keep the whole cycle going. And so when this dairy mother's milk production starts to decline at 4 or 5 years of age, the farmers aren't going to check and make sure that she wasn't re-inseminated at some point before sending her to slaughter. In fact, fetal bovine serum is something the medical industry uses, and that is extracted from a fetus, a cow fetus. And so there's value in slaughtering a pregnant mother, and something that I never thought about until that day when we went to the slaughterhouse to rescue Liberty and Indigo. That day there were spent dairy mothers in the holding pens awaiting their deaths. And I noticed that all of their udders were full and leaking. And actually they started to pour milk. One of the mothers came over to me, and I had my little girl. She was a year old. And she began pouring milk, especially more once she approached us. And so it made me realize that these dairy mothers, when they get marked at the farms for, the decline in their production and they're going to be sent to slaughter, from the time that they get their last milking on the farm to the transport to arriving at the slaughterhouse and however long they have to wait before they're killed, their udders, while their overall production has declined, their udders are still very much producing milk for a baby that has been long killed. And so they're completely engorged. So the pain of that is an additional level of pain and grief and misery on these dairy mothers that I never realized until I was also a nursing mother and there with these mothers awaiting their deaths. So that was something I actually learned that day. So to be at Farm Sanctuary a year later, to see Liberty and Indigo thriving and safe, and Indigo nursing still on her mother was, it's a beautiful and sad moment.
What has the reaction been, if you've talked to Joaquin, his speech at the Oscars, which was so powerful, which addressed all these issues, and then in the year since, it's really interesting to see that this has been a pivotal year in so many ways. How has this movement transformed during this year, Shaun?
That's a good question. I mean, we saw an article yesterday. It was in Esquire that was covering the film, and the author made a comment about Joaquin's speech from the Oscars, and said, hearing that then and then seeing this film now, suddenly it made a lot more sense. Suddenly it became clear, because here you are at an awards show and there's all these different films and artists that are being recognized, and sort of randomly one winner begins talking about, animals, among other issues too. So for someone who's maybe not interested in these issues at all, it might seem like it came out of left field. But it was spoken, and it was spoken to a very large audience, the world that was watching the Oscars last year. And then this piece a year later. So he correlated that. So that was interesting. Joaquin's one of our best voices, I should think, because he has this unique ability to be interesting to, I think, young and old and male and female. Hollywood calls that, when Hollywood's making a movie, they'll call it a 4-quadrant film, meaning does it appeal to young, old, male, female? They try to target as many people as they can. And he has this unique ability, I think, to reach out with his work. And then when he messages like this on top of it, I think it's impactful.
And so tell us about Los Angeles Animal Save and the Save movement in general, because this was all done, this incredible film, through the Save movement. Amy.
Well, a little about Animal Save movement is we are all over the world, and there's around 1,000 groups. And we go down to these slaughterhouses and we bear witness. And we actually have a love-based activism where we are trying to open up dialogue between the workers, between the owners, passersby. We want to talk to them and find some common ground if it exists, and see if we can't get them to see why we are there, get them to see that these animals are individuals who don't deserve to be treated this way. And so that's what helped us develop the relationship with the owner. It was mostly Shaun speaking to him and trying to get him to try a plant-based diet and heal some of his health problems. Anyway, so Animal Save movement does this all over the world. We also have Climate Save movement, Youth Climate Save movement, excuse me, Health Save movement as well. So we look at the problems that animal agriculture creates, and we bring people solutions so that they don't have to be torn, inside of, well, I think I need to eat these animal parts to be healthy. My doctor tells me to, society tells me to, mainstream media tells me to, but it doesn't feel good because I'm sad for these animals. We show people that they don't have to do that, and that they can actually improve their health if they're eating, a healthier plant-based diet. And also we show them just how detrimental their food choices are for the overall destruction of the planet and creating climate change. So that's what Animal Save movement does, and why we were able to even save these cows and film it as well.
And by the way, these are the hutches. When the babies are removed from their mothers, they're put in these hutches. And obviously, every mother wants to be with her baby. Every baby wants to be with his or her mother. So to be put in these hutches and dragged away from mother is, I don't think you need to put any words to that. It's pretty obvious that that is creating anguish. And actually, in his speech on the awards night in the Academy Awards, he made reference to that. Joaquin Phoenix said their anguish is unmistakable. Yes, it's unmistakable. Shaun, now everybody is talking about climate change. That is really the global focus right now because it's accelerating. We're in the 6th mass extinction. And yet there is this missing piece of the puzzle. You're a filmmaker. You're famed from having really started this genre with Earthlings, which has led to so many other films. But you had the breakthrough film that started it all, Earthlings. I have still to this day have not met, seen another film that has turned more people vegan than Earthlings. Check it out. It's still out there. What about this gap? We're talking about electric vehicles, we're talking about solar power, but we're not talking about this leading cause of climate change, animal agriculture.
Yeah, it's a blind spot, no question about it. It's a huge blind spot. And, you know, if you look at the IPCC, you know, for instance, the International Panel on Climate Change, which is a body of the UN, their focus is fossil fuels, getting fossil fuels down. Big problem there, no question about it. But not looking at this issue because it's a $2 trillion a year industry. And, you know, they may have to be pushed more and more into recognizing this. But here's the thing. I just read an article just the other day about pig farms in Iowa and how communities were complaining about the waste and the smell and all these different problems because there's just tremendous pig farming all through Iowa. And not once in that article did I hear anybody talk about not eating bacon. They just kind of want it in somebody else's state or somebody else's backyard. And and I'll make a prediction here. I'll take a guess that animal agriculture will happily put solar panels on all their facilities and use electric trucks to transport all their animals as long as people keep eating animals. But this is why we put these title cards at the end of the film, so that people understand that we're already consuming 80 billion animals a year, that this number is estimated to double by the year 2050. In just 30 years, this number will double. And how do you feed 160 billion animals? How do you feed 80 billion animals? You got to grow this food somewhere. These animals don't eat animals. Sometimes we grind up animals and try to feed them to them. But for the most part, these animals eat plants. So the plants have to grow somewhere. So they clear the forests. And we've already cleared 50% of the forests. So how do you double this? It's very simple. It's not rocket science. But we found that you've probably seen this too, Jane, throughout your career as an activist. The giving up of meat and dairy seems to be so difficult for people. It's almost like giving up a drug. I interviewed a truck driver, a pig, he called himself a hog hauler, actually. And he said something interesting. It was sort of terrifying. He said he thinks it's easier for a person to change their religion than to change their diet. That's how deeply, deeply enmeshed the food that we eat is in our psyche. So I'm looking as a filmmaker, I guess, to answer your question, I'm looking for a combination of images and messaging that helps people, sort of crowbars its way into that a little better. So people go, okay, I'll try it. Okay, I'll try it. And we have lots of options out there now that it's getting better, as you know. But it's still, how's it getting better and doubling at the same time? It reminds me of when the Prius came out and the new Hummer came out. They were the same year, and they were both the best-selling car, which I thought was a classic microcosm of humanity. You know what I mean? They were both one bestseller.
Yes, I remember, and I switched to a Prius immediately, and I still drive a Prius. And in any case, I want to thank both of you. I think you've raised so many important issues, and this film is truly extraordinary, and it's not graphic. It's emotional, but it's not graphic. Now, my final question as we wrap up, how can people see this film, or if they want others? We've obviously done a sneak peek here, but if we want people, let's say family members who we're encouraging to try more plant-based, or neighbors or friends, how can people see this film?
Oh, it's posted on the Animal Safe Movement YouTube channel, the Earthlings YouTube channel,
Farm Sanctuary, of course.
Farm Sanctuary's YouTube channel, and LA Animal Safe's YouTube channel. So, and it's all over many Instagram accounts as well. So basically, if you search for it, you'll find it.
All right, Indigo. Just put in Indigo, it will pop up. I want to thank both of you. You're both my heroes. Oh my God. And the work that goes into creating a film like this, I can't even imagine. There's so much that goes into it as a cinematographer. Let me give you the final word, Shaun. Any final thoughts on this film? How hard it was to make, how the challenges, and why you would urge everybody to watch it?
Well, I mean, from a technical standpoint, if that's interesting, I talked about this yesterday. It was put together in about 3 weeks, which is very fast, and it was very windy out there that day, so we had all the microphones that were on Joaquin and his sisters. We couldn't use the audio because it was muffled and windy, And when the animals were first coming down, there's a shot in the movie when the family is standing there with the volunteer from Farm Sanctuary, and they've opened the gate, and all the cows are starting to come in. There's 3 feeders in this area. And how big would you say it was? I mean, it's a couple of acres. I don't know where we were standing in that field, but
That field
it had to
was
be at
probably
least
an acre.
At least 1 acre, yeah. And there's 3 field areas to feed. And I'm like, well, I got 3 camera guys here. Where are they going to go to eat? Which one? And she goes, I don't know. So we're like, okay. So we're just sort of waiting because it's animals, and then we followed them, and then we just we try not to film each other. We try to get everything to work well, and then Indigo walks right up to Joaquin, and that was incredible to see that.
It was, I mean, it seemed like she recognized Joaquin and went over, because Joaquin saved her life, and she just went right up to him. That to me was the mind-blowing moment of the film.
Yeah. For us too, shooting it, we're just like, whoa. In fact, I'll tell you this real quick before we go. We shot twice. We shot sort of in the morning before lunch, and then after. And the morning stuff was rough. Like I was thinking like we weren't getting, everything was too spread out. We couldn't keep everybody in the lens, and I was a little concerned the first hour or so. And then we had a battery failure, which shut down the main camera. So we were like, okay. So we broke for a moment, and then we went back out, and then just everything happened. It all just came together. So sometimes when you're documenting this unscripted stuff, you have to almost just sort of let go, and you really, even though you're holding this clunky device that requires focus and power, and you just sort of, even though it's mechanical, you try to just sort of be one with what's happening, and you intuit, you sort of intuit, I'm going to move to the right here maybe, and I might just see something, and so you just sort of go, it sounds a little airy-fairy, but you go to this sort of Zen place because you're just live as a documentarian trying to capture something that will hopefully have a positive effect on the viewer later on. And so that's what happened on that one.
I can't imagine anybody watching this film and not being transformed. And it's so easy now. It's so easy to choose a compassionate diet, compassionate lifestyle, better for us, better for the animals, better for the planet. Thank you, Shaun and Amy. You are amazing. You're my heroes. I love everything you do. I love the Save movement. Get involved, people. Watch Indigo. Check out the Save movement. Let's save the planet.
I just want to send love to Lisa Carlin and her family. She's my LA-based mom, and I love her very much. And thinking of her, I just wanted to send some love.
We all do. We all do. We call her the vegan ninja, because when there's a tough assignment, Lisa Carlin is always on the case. She's amazing. She's fierce. And we are all thinking, and I personally praying for her. Thank you so very much. All right, guys, this was fantastic. Bye.
Bye, Jane. Thank you.